I think, yes. Welcome. Welcome to the fourth call of how to navigate better through the uncharted territories of this very interesting time. And I think, we are since about 8 weeks sitting all together worldwide in a time where a lot of things that we are used to are falling away, and a lot of things that we are not used to are staring at us. And so today, as in these other calls as well, I want to share a few insights and tools with you that hopefully will make your life easier, hopefully help you to discover more about yourself and really see this time not just as a huge burden or challenge, but really also as an incubation chamber of your personal growth and making your life better after all. Now, today I spent most of the day fixing fences. It was, I did some riding with my horse Gold, and my friend was riding him, and we alternate, and all of a sudden he was in the ring and something was spooking him. I think horses see ghosts. They can just see something. I didn't notice anything, but he was like freaked out. And so he did a sharp U-turn, and then he jumped up and down, and my friend just fell off the horse like in a very high arc, and Gold was not done. He was so freaked out that he actually broke through the fences and ran away to his buddies. And I think the buddies who are a little bit more mature, I believe, rolled their eyes at him because there was really no need to freak out. But once he was there, he felt much better. Now, why do I tell you this? Because it really happens to me that this is exactly how we can be. Not only this time, but in general in life. Something is freaking us out. Something is, spooking us, making us feel unsafe. And then in our mind, we are making it bigger and bigger and bigger. And at some point, all we want is just to get rid of it, get away from it, run away from it. And then we are losing our cool. And so rather than really looking around, looking at the challenge, looking at what scares us, and trying to figure out what actually is our response, the appropriate response, or maybe what's an opportunity here. Instead, we are just running away from it. And I think a lot of you probably want to run away from this current situation, and maybe even want to run away from yourself or the people that you're living with. So this talk today, or this time together today, is all about how to improve your relationships during this time, how to improve your relationship with yourself and those that are around you. Because let's face it, stripped away from our normal routines, from the roles we are comfortable in playing, from the times away from our homes and our families and friends, and everything is just gone. And now we are facing each other and ourselves in new ways. And some people really feel like they are living with strangers. They are looking in the mirror, don't really know who that is who's looking back. They are waking up next to their partner or waking up to the kids and feeling like, that they, like Gold, just want to get away from it. The ceiling is collapsing. The walls are caving in. It's just too much. So how can we go through these feelings that are coming up and actually make them more as catalysts rather than as curses that we are suffering from? So as last time already, my friend and business manager Miroki joins us today, and she will manage the questions and the time and me as always in wonderful ways. So thank you, Miroki, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
It's always fun having you on.
Yeah,
Well,
it was
we
a
thought we're
pleasure.
going to mix it up a little bit. Yeah. So we thought we're going to actually start with questions rather
Yes.
than me having a talk. So let's go for the first question.
Absolutely. Well, we have some really amazing questions, Friedman. As you know, that many of our listeners have been sending in over the last couple weeks, which is incredible. Thank you to everyone who's reached out on Facebook, Instagram,
Yes, thank
Twitter,
you.
Pinterest, email, with all your questions. And we hope to get to as many of them as we can today, which is one of the reasons why we wanted to start. We also have some hellos from our YouTube live right now. Jen has reached out saying hello, and she really loves our video. She's sending a namaste. So hello, Jen. Thank you so much for joining us today. So Friedman,
Thank
I
you,
want to,
Jen.
yeah. So Friedman, I want to open up with one of the questions that, and this is one that I think we've been hearing from a lot of people as well. So this Judy has reached out to us, and she said it looks like the pandemic is going to be around for quite some time with peaks and valleys. I've done pretty well getting through the past 8 weeks of living by myself and practicing social distancing. This likely is going to go on for months, and the thought of that overwhelms me at times. So do you have any suggestions to help cope with loneliness? And I think that's a wonderful question, because that is, of course, a lot of what we're going to be speaking about today.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I was kind of expecting that that question will come up because it really is a big issue, right?
Mhm.
Feeling lonely. We are such social animals and we are so used to always have some kind of an interaction and connection. And all of a sudden we are alone. And, I actually experienced loneliness for a long stretch, almost for a year when I came to the US. And well, I wasn't housebound or locked in, but I was stripped away of everything that I was used to and comfortable with. In Germany, I had a career, I had friends, I had a girlfriend I lived with, and everything was just tossed away as I went into this program, which was supposed to last only 2 years, but it, basically made me stay forever, or not forever, but for a long time. And the first, year was really hard because I felt so out of place. I was so disconnected from my environment. I felt like I, again, didn't really know who that person is that I woke up to, because I was identified so much with everything else. For me, it was being, a pleaser and a peacemaker and an achiever, and all those things that were so important to me were not there anymore. And so I really had to face myself, and it was very uncomfortable. And it made me very lonely, and it made me want to reach out to people, but there wasn't really anyone to reach out. And when you reach out and when you go out, you can be amongst hundreds of people and still feel like the only one who is really lonely in the room. So I
Mhm.
often found myself sitting in my apartment and, dealing with that loneliness.
And
Now,
one thing
of
people
course,
never realize too is that sometimes people think, oh, we're all in an English speaking, like if you know to speak English, even though I know you're German, a lot of Germans know English as a second language, and you think if you go to another country, oh, everyone speaks English, it's fine. But there's such cultural like differences, there's such nuances between the cultures. So it's not as simple as just going up and speaking to someone, because there's just, even how you behave and your own upbringing changes everything.
yes, there were definitely a few funny stories that happened where there was a cultural mishap or mismatch happening. But what I felt like, that the loneliness, of course, I also tried to, basically distract myself and do things that I felt like I never had the chance of doing. So I did mountain biking and started yoga. And so just to keep myself busy. But at the end, it was still that emptiness with the relationship with myself I struggled with. And that made me then more curious about, okay, who is that person? Meaning me. Who am I? And what do I actually like? And how can I actually maybe arrive at a point where I like myself? And that's what I would suggest to you, just to really see this not as a time to kill time and hopefully be able to go out again and hang out with others and not have to be really in close relationship with yourself, but really use it as a time to discover more about who you are. And there are like 3 steps that I find have really helped me a lot and help my clients a lot as I go with them through those steps. And the first is just, the step of curiosity. Because really, I didn't know myself. And when you're really honest, you may not really know yourself either. And so just being curious to figure out, well, what is this me that I actually have the first and the very last breath of this life with? Shouldn't I know this me a little bit better? So write down simply the thoughts that you have during the day, listen to your emotions, notice what kind of desires or yearnings are happening. Just be aware of what you do and how you think and how you feel. And especially with the thoughts, write them down for a few days because it gives you a lot of information on how your inner workings are. And don't judge yourself. Don't, oh, that's a stupid thought. I shouldn't have that. That's crazy. No, just, write it down and observe. Once you have collected a little bit of data, and there may be some data about like, oh, I'm not feeling good enough, or I'm feeling like everyone else has a good time, just not me. And maybe you feel like, oh, the worst case scenario, it will never really end, and I will never really find happiness, or I will never really be able to, advance in my career. Whatever those thoughts are, especially those a little bit deflating thoughts, just notice what beliefs may be underneath them. Sometimes beliefs are coming in many different words and thoughts and sentences. They're like branches. But when you really go down into the root, then you can say, oh, it's pretty much the same belief with all different kinds of expressions. And you may discover that you for a long time have identified yourself with a belief of not being safe in the world, of not being good enough, of maybe not being lovable, or that maybe, you always have to look out for the worst case scenario because, the shoe will drop. There will be beliefs that you identify just by watching that make you wonder, well, do I really want to believe that? Is this a belief that I was born with, or was it a belief that I took on? And do I actually have a choice to believe something else afterwards? After all, beliefs are just beliefs. They're not written in stone. They are not reality. They're not gravity. They're just beliefs. So what if I could change the belief? So once you have that belief found and you realize a little bit more that this is actually based on the past and not necessarily something that is the truth at all times, then you go into the third step. And the third step is just, what would be a new belief for me? How would this look like? How would I act? How would I feel? So for example, instead of saying I'm not good enough, what if I appreciate myself? I value myself, or I am good enough, or I am safe, or I belong, I matter. Whatever those new beliefs are, they may at the beginning sound like wishful thinking, but then you're going to write down again in your nice little journal evidence from your past that showed that you were safe, that showed that you were, that you mattered, that you belonged, that you were loved, that you actually are, full of great resources. And you just collect all the positive evidence that then boosts this new belief. And then you are imagining that the belief is a little bit like, a new suit, a new sweater, a new pair of shoes, something that you take on, breathe in, and really feel like, yeah, I'm going to walk around in this belief. I'm going to pretend that this is who I am. From now on, today, by myself, I'm going to pretend that I am good enough, that I like myself, that I am safe. How would I think? How would I act? And then how would I feel? That all changes over time. It's really amazing when we are making a decision on what we want to believe. We can see more clearly things that are falling into this belief. We are thinking more along the ways of this belief, and eventually we are also having our emotions really an adjustment to that. And wouldn't it be fun if you actually could figure out that you can change your whole foundation of self just in the next few weeks completely by you choosing to make up your mind, free of all these outer circumstances, which really, that's what I enjoyed being lonely. I had a clean slate. I didn't have anybody else, that kept me in this old way of thinking about myself because they were all gone. And right now, when you're lonely and you're deprived of all those outer influences, what if you could just simply allow yourself to have a clean slate. You know, a lot of people clean up their basement and clean up their drawers and their, you know, their, we call them closets of hell. We have several of those. And just getting it all out and, you know, basically giving it to goodwill. Well, what if you can do the same with your old beliefs and old habits? Clean them all out and really see how a new version of yourself can emerge. Now, one other quick tip to that is when you're alone, also employ the inner cheerleader, which is kind of my best friend in my head. It's this part of me that is just always saying nice things about me. It's unbelievable. It's like I started this habit after I watched a movie about that. And then I thought, oh, why not just trying that? And it works so well. So this little inner cheerleader has a very pleasant voice and has always nice comments. Oh, you were scooping up the poops of the horses. Good job. Oh, you look really nice today. Wow, it's nice weather. What do you want to do today? You deserve to have a nice weather. I don't know where this voice comes from. It's just like an autopilot now, and it feels good. It's not anything that makes me feel like, you know, I'm better than anyone else, but it makes me always a little, you know, like buoyed up, always a little bit uplifted. I can wake up with a bad hair day, but that little inner voice definitely knows what to say to build me up. So try to employ your inner cheerleader and see how that goes.
I think that's really lovely. I mean, I try to do that, and sometimes on a day where I wake up and I'm not put together, or I'm just rolling around the house in my PJs, I have to kind of tell my inner cheerleader to say, like, you have to cheer on the sweatpants life, Maroki. Like, being in your PJs and finding a chance to relax is a really good thing to do. So
Exactly, exactly. No, the cheerleader is a very kind voice. It's like the
mm,
opposite of my mom or my aunt,
oh
who sometimes could be a little bit more strict. So it's like that what you wish you would have heard when you were
yeah,
little, and it
yeah.
exists
And I
in your
think it's so
head.
important because I come from the entertainment industry, and it's such a really cutthroat industry to be in, and everyone's always trying to tear you down. And one of the practices that all our coaches and mentors taught us back when I was in school was, if you don't stand up for yourself and if you're not cheering yourself on, no one else is going to. And I had to
That's very
learn,
true.
I had to really learn how to cultivate that voice that says, especially when you're rejected from auditions and you're feeling like you're not getting any work, you have to say, like, it's not me, like, I'm doing an amazing job and I'm just going down to throw down, and then I'm going home. And I put it out in the world,
Yes.
I've done the best I can, and just trusting in my own abilities and myself. So I think the inner cheerleader is a wonderful practice to have.
You know, and right now the inner cheerleader would exactly say this. Yes, it's maybe not really a super, you know, productive and fulfilling day that you have when you are by yourself, you know, still under lockdown, but you did your best and you tried to maybe try out a new recipe, or maybe you were, you know, trying to learn a new language for a half an hour, or maybe you were actually doing something that was pleasurable. So it was a good day, and that's the best you could do. Exactly. So just
Mhm.
really allowing yourself to highlight the good things during
Mhm.
the day that make you feel good about yourself. And again, I really feel like this kind of lasts a little bit, this whole pandemic situation we're in. But I do see this as an enormous opportunity for us just to, you know, reset, reboot, and especially reboot our relationships. And the first and most important relationship is the one with ourselves.
We have so much more time to reflect. I mean, you know as well as I do that I lead a very, very busy day. But even now, I realize I have gained a couple of hours in a day because I'm not commuting as much anymore.
Right.
And so I've taken that freedom and used that opportunity to journal more and spend more time reflecting on myself, because what better time and what better opportunity to do so, right?
I know. And I hope it's going to become a habit that we continue to, you know, foster and not just forget. This is not a
Absolutely.
band-aid situation. This is more like, you know, creating a new world, a new reality.
Yeah, absolutely. Friedman, we have this question. I think it has a lot to do with being lonely and being by yourself. And it's an interesting question. I think actually one that I've personally witnessed a lot of my colleagues or members of my community also express as well, those who especially live alone.
Right.
John here is saying, and just so you know, to our audience members, if you have any questions today, feel free to leave them in the comments box for the YouTube live, and we will definitely try and find some time to address them. So Friedemann, this question comes from John. He says that human beings need touch. It's a part of who we are and why babies die without their mother's touch. I'm an extrovert. I live alone and I've not touched another human being in 5 weeks. I don't know how much longer I can hold on. Is there anything that can be done?
Yeah, that's a really good one. I mean, I have to say, this time of loneliness, I definitely could absolutely relate to this not being touched and not having this closeness. But I also believe that we are, I mean, no offense, John, but we are all a little bit spoiled in regards to looking outside of us for getting our needs met. It's so easy, it's so easy for us to have, all those interactions and connections because we lived in a very open and very connected society, and all of a sudden this is gone. And what if you start to actually have a different relationship with yourself? I mean, there is something about this habit of touching yourself, like a little face massage or hand massage or belly massage or foot massage. Don't ignore your body. I mean, this is one of the things that I really admire about Danielle, my wife, who, I can find at times, laying in bed in the morning, giving herself a beautiful foot massage. How do you come up with this? It's such a great idea. Of course, I don't take the time for it, but she does. And it makes her feel so good. She prefers, of course, if I do it. But for the lack of it, she is just perfectly happy to give it to herself. And what I mean with self-discovery is also discovering your body, discovering what feels good to you with that, with the sensations, with sensuality, with touching. Be really someone who is nourishing yourself with that. Don't wait for this time to be over and ignore your own needs. Give yourself a hug. I mean, there are studies that show that hugging yourself is one of the most comforting things that you can do. Or take a bath, or do something that feels like a touch, that feels connected. Hug a pillow. I mean, I know it's not a replacement, and we can always say, well, this is not the same. But you can find also some connection and some pleasure in doing this. And especially, you can find the kindness and the connection with yourself. Ultimately, it is about opening up to yourself as your own resource. So that we go out and again, once this all thing is lifted and all, on some level is more open again, then, we have those interactions again. But what if we would be so filled within ourselves? What if we would be so great in really taking care of our own needs that we have more to give because we're overflowing and we are more self-reliant, so we are not disappointed when we're not getting from others what we are used to get? What if that would make us actually better human beings because we have more to give and we are demanding less from others?
I'm actually reminded by, thinking about monks who spend a lot of years alone in meditation. And I don't, I don't think that every monk who goes into meditation is an introvert per se, but
Right.
they're people and they're choosing time to self-reflect and choosing to isolate themselves. And I remember there was actually an incredible article that came out very early in the pandemic about a man who was sharing his experience of living in isolation for 35 plus years because he was incarcerated, and he
Mm.
lived in a very, very small space. And he just, during those years, he spent a lot of time cultivating that relationship with himself and really finding that deep reflection. And he realized, between all the ideas of like development, becoming your own best friend, really understanding who you are, he learned how to find comfort living alone, and
Yeah.
not experiencing loneliness. And to your point about connecting and hugging pillows as well, as a friend of mine, I remember her making a comment about maybe this is a time to be like a touching Mother Nature. Go out and put your hands in the dirt, or hug a tree, you
I
know,
like that.
like
That's a very
physically.
good suggestion.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, they talk a lot about that human beings. Like one of the reasons why we love gardening is when our hands touch dirt, there actually is a chemical reaction that releases. I can't remember if it's endorphins or serotonin, and actually makes us feel better. So this is a time
Right.
to find that connection. There's connection to other living beings, and I think it's sometimes just as important, if not more important, than than touching other humans as well. Because in some ways, we're all connected.
Definitely, absolutely. And these are great suggestions, just, the connection to nature and just finding alternatives. I think what we have to learn in general is just to be more flexible. And I do have to say, I'm really impressed with overall how most people have been flexible and have been willing just to make the best out of it. And there are a lot of good examples on people that just, showed what is possible. It doesn't have to be that we are pouting or that we are just suffering. We can actually find ways to fill ourselves up that we haven't really thought about. So it's quite amazing that there is just a general creativity and openness just to embrace and not just to resist. So yeah,
Mhm. And
let's
always
find.
to yeah, and
Uh-huh.
always to remember that a lot of us, we do have the fortune of being connected digitally. Years ago, if we were in a situation like this, we couldn't talk to our friends and families living overseas.
Right.
We wouldn't be able to witness something just by loading up on our phones, like a virtual call and saying like, here, look at this life event that is happening. And in some ways, we get that connection that way.
I know. We are blessed in that regard. I think you have some questions actually in this regard about dating, just because,
Yes.
the relationship to self is really important. And it is about, self-discovery and really putting the focus on yourself. But of course, if you live with others, or if you have connection with others that right now are challenging, that brings out as well stuff. So what did you have about dating? Because it reminds me a little bit about what you just said with being connected on the internet.
Absolutely. I mean, dating is such a big conversation piece that's been happening right now, and we got a lot of questions on dating. So I think, and they're all connected in some way. So I'll share each of them with you, and I think we can address all of it as a whole.
Yeah.
So we have one of the more overarching questions saying, "What are your views on dating during this time, Dr. Friedman?" from Mick. And then there's Zoe who says, I've gone on some virtual dates with people and it just doesn't feel the same as a real first date. The web image is sometimes pixelated and there's connectivity issues. So I sometimes feel awkward and I don't feel like I'm connecting with anyone. And is this going to be our future? And then finally, we have someone, Jessica here. She's actually been dating someone for a while. And then, of course, all of this hit and they haven't touched each other since. And they've been talking about moving in together before all this happened. And she's wondering, when would it be finally be okay to see and touch them? Or maybe what if they decide to move in together during this time? Are they taking a risk?
Well, just to start with the last question, I think, the once we actually have the ability quickly to test and figure out, okay, so are we positive or not? Do we have this virus or not? Once that ability is there, I think there is no limit to, move in together or have physical connection or anything like that. But that is unfortunately not the, given yet. I mean, it's like, when there was the HIV outbreak, people had to also really, step back and take precautions and wonder, like, is it safe or not? And, let's test ourselves first before we have some closer physical relationship. And in some ways, it's similar. And in regards to, we need to have an ability to know that we're okay, because otherwise, there is certainly a risk of having close physical contact or moving in together. But this time will come, and I'm pretty sure it will come in the next maybe 3 or 4 months, that there will be tests available, and that there will be tests available that take 45 minutes, and then you can go together, get tested, just together, then also watch out that you're not potentially getting infected in the meantime. Just to have a baseline of being okay. Now, the other thing is that the virtual dating, I find this actually quite wonderful, to be honest, and because of my experience. When I met Danielle, we had like a week together in a yoga camp. And, that was basically, keeping yoga postures, getting up at 4:30 in the morning, eating onion soup. And it wasn't really the most romantic thing you can imagine to date at that time. And it wasn't really dating. And
I
so
don't know.
all
I
we
loved
got,
your story, Friedman. I loved your Meet Danielle story.
well, it was like, basically at the end, there was like a little kiss and that was it. So, but we know because we had this kind of connection that was so palpable that people said, "So how long are you married?" And we said, "We just met." But there was just something you couldn't really deny. We knew that we want to keep this going, even though she lived in Tennessee, I lived in Seattle, and we didn't have the internet, or we were not really internet literate at that time because it was like 99.
Mhm.
So it's a little bit, before everyone was pretty much hooked up with something. So we used the phone, and we had, several months of only talking on the phone, sometimes for hours. And what we both said is that through these connections on long distance, we had solidified a connection, a mental, emotional, a heart connection that really was a wonderful basis. Then, once she moved to Seattle, to really build on, because in some ways we knew each other already without any kind of other distractions. It's great to date and go out and have fun and go to the movies. These are all wonderful things, but it's not the same as really just having this one-on-one without any activity and just talking and just opening up and just figuring out who you are and how this resonates. So take advantage of this. It's more uncomfortable. I totally get it. But I also feel at the same time it's more honest and it's more real. And if you really feel something, and if you really feel something comes across while you're not really slurping a drink together, or going for a walk or having any physical connection, if you feel there is something there that really goes beyond it through the ethers, well, maybe this is really a person that you want to wait for to meet, then also up close and personal once the doors are open again. So it's not a limitation. For us, it was really a big plus to have
Mhm.
that, and not
Actually,
something that I would want to miss.
it's actually a really great point that you talk about too, because one of the reasons why online dating started was for an opportunity for people to meet others that are not within their immediate circle, right? So if
Right.
someone, I know my friend, her husband, when they met, he lived 45 an hour away, which isn't very far in today's modern standards, but because she worked a super busy job and he worked a super busy job, and they weren't in the same circles, they would have never met had it not been through online dating. And that gave them the opportunity to connect and communicate with each other and foster a relationship with each other before they met face to face. And they wouldn't have been able to do that had they not had the grace of the internet. So that, you're
Yeah.
very right in finding that we have to sometimes remember that like we had online dating long before all this happened, and that it opened up a lot of opportunities to extend our reach, whether it is in a romantic relationship or even just with friendships, to connect with friends overseas, and just try and remember it, that it was something that it was meant to open more doors as opposed to closing more doors. And there was something interesting that you said too, Friedman, that people are more real. And it reminds me of, because I know you do your sessions online with your clients, and one thing you always say is that you feel like when you speak to your clients and they're in the comfort of their own home, they get a chance to relax and work through their processes in a much more authentic, genuine way, in a much more powerful way, and they implement their changes actually faster as a result of that. And I think actually that can similarly be applied to relationships that are virtual, because if these people are in the comfort of their own homes, they're not putting on a face, they're not, like dressing up or like having to feel like they're performing a certain way if they're going to a nice restaurant or even taking a walk. They're more
Yes.
relaxed, and then they get to foster a more genuine form of communication with each other that way.
Absolutely. I mean, everything in our normal environment is somehow, a touchstone. It's something like an anchor that makes you feel comfortable or makes you feel good or reminds you of something that you like to look at. That's why you have it around you. So all of those things can be helpful for you to be more your authentic self. And, just like in my sessions, it's really helpful just to not have to have a barrier, because when you're in your home, you don't have those walls usually. And I would also suggest to do dating online via Zoom or Skype or so as a fun event where you can say, well, let's meet for a drink, and then just, have this time frame of a drink or a coffee, and that's it, and then, meet again, maybe for dinner. Then you have dinner together and do it
Mhm.
still online. It doesn't have to be something where you're just, doing question and answer, staring at each other. It can be still something entertaining. You can even watch a movie together if you
Yeah.
want to. Just turn the movie on at the same time and talk about it afterwards. I mean, Danielle and I meditated together. We did every
Oh.
morning 30 minutes. And so, we called before we started, then we did our meditation, then we called afterwards and checked in and see how it was. It was wonderful. It was a great habit. So again, just embrace it and see that maybe there are ways to make this even more beneficial for your future relationship as you're dating like this than if you just go through the regular routines of meeting in bars or something like that.
And what are your thoughts, Friedman, about that last question about the people who are thinking, they dated for a while, they've now switched online, but they're also considering moving in together, and when would they be allowed to touch again, or when would they eh, do you have any thoughts on whether you think what they're doing would be a risk if they decide to choose to move in together during this time
I mean,
or
of
touch each
course,
other
it's you
again?
can avoid. I mean, besides this whole testing that I talked about, I mean, there is also the possibility to say, okay, what if we are simply putting ourselves into a week-long quarantine, and we're just saying we're not seeing anyone, we are not connecting to anyone, we are really staying in this place put. So if we had the virus, it would show up, and if nothing shows up, we are clean. So we can at least assume that now, since we haven't had any other contacts, we can see each other, and then
Mm.
we can meet. And then, so that would be a possibility to do too, just to, keep your time frame where you really commit to not having potential infections as a week or so, if it's possible for you, and then see how you can potentially meet, because that's a pretty, I would say, limiting risk situation if you would do that. If you really would wait at least a week to see if any virus may come up or not.
Yeah, I would say I definitely agree with you. I guess it's very similar to how people are traveling to see their families or traveling home to
Right,
another country. They quarantine for 14 days. And then when they, realize they have no symptoms, then they can rejoin their family or whatever group they've
right.
chosen to visit during that time. Well, that's great. Well, there's the flip side to the people who are not touching each other. Of course, there's people who are living with each other right now
I
during these
know,
times.
I know, and that's a tough one. Several of my clients are telling stories of how it's hard. It's hard to be with your spouse all the time. Some are working together now for the first time. They have to share, their little office as their, mutual office, or having to entertain the kids all the time, and feeling like that. This is it's just a lot. It's a lot of noise. It's a little very little space, very little time for yourself. So what can you do? I mean, there are really, I think, a whole variety of tools that can really help you to make this enjoyable and actually have fun with it. But I would just talk about three quick things that I find are basically, like pillars of making the relationship stronger. And one is communication. Really make sure that you talk, that you communicate. And communicating is not just, can you get me this? Or complaining about, that the bathroom is still, filthy. No, communicating is actually setting time aside. So if you can go, for example, for a walk for 30 minutes, go together and do 15 minutes of one person talking and the other person just listening and saying, yeah, I hear you. Yes, this is interesting. Wow, how does it feel to you? That must be really hard. Tell me more about it. Really empathizing, having compassion, and not offering solutions, not going into some protective or self-defense pattern, just listening and hearing out what your partner has to say, and then it's your time to do 15 minutes. These so-called stress relieving conversations, unbelievably powerful. You feel like you are having a voice. You feel like that you're actually able to put yourself into your partner's shoes or your child's shoes. And you feel like that you give them, and you have the feeling at the same time that because they listen to you, they have your back. They get you. You're not alienating from each other. You actually are interested in each other. And that in itself has really made relationships that were before this whole time dicey much, much better, because now, these couples were forced to talk, forced to huddle up together and then foster this way of communicating, and it really brought them closer. And the second thing is about nourishing. I think it's really important that you nourish your relationships, even with the smallest things. So we have a habit of doing appreciations at least once a week, where we are during dinner, first one starts and talks about everything that we are appreciating. It's about appreciating about what happened in the week, appreciating about the partner, appreciating about oneself, appreciating about life in general. So you just really see that as a 10-minute of a rampage of appreciation, and then the other person appreciates, and at the end you give each other a high five and feel really just like, wow, that lifted up the spirit. So that's a form of nourishment. Another form of nourishment is this paying attention. The great masters of relationships, the Gottmans, that the Gottman Institute in Seattle, if you heard about it, you probably know how much they know about relationships and how to make them better. And they have come up with something that's called bid. And a bid basically is the offering of your partner that is, like looking for attention or looking for recognition. It can be like, hey, look, did you see this on the internet? This is an interesting article. Or, can you help me with, this cooking the tea? I don't know exactly how to use this new tea maker. Or you just have your spouse coming you're in the computer and you're looking up. You're actually paying attention to your spouse. Those little things where you are taking the bid and you are responding with openness to your partner, if you do this 7 or 8 out of 10 times, you're golden. Everything is great. If you do it less than 5 times, you should file for divorce, because that's really what science or research has shown, that people that don't answer those bids and feel that their bids are not answered are in generally feeling alienated and disconnected from their partner. So that is really a very important thing, just to notice those little offerings and taking advantage of them. I don't know if you have bits sometimes, Miroki, that you are not noticing from your partner, or vice versa.
Oh man, I mean, so I remember when my partner and I started dating, we kind of after a while we had to really learn, discover what our love language was, because we had very different ways of expressing our affection to each other. I'm very much an attention person. Like, I want to give people attention, I want to validate them, and that's something I seek a lot. And I'm also a gift giver, whereas he actually performed acts of service, so making me breakfast or cleaning the washroom. But sometimes I wouldn't notice that because I want a gift, or I want to be told I'm beautiful. And so
that's a good one. Yes.
So, as time went on, sometimes I'm like, you don't love me, like you don't do the things that I'm looking for that validate our relationship. And he would be like, what? I think I'm doing all the right things. I'm like, well, you don't ever tell me I'm beautiful. He's like, well, I just assume I think you're beautiful. And so we had to learn to communicate those different strategies and just make sure that we hear each other's needs and also fulfill them, not only in our own way, not to say that, oh, he should immediately just start showering me with flowers all the time just because that I require that. I've learned to recognize that his love language is acts of service. So when he does something for me, I'll think, okay, yes, like that is how he expresses love to me. And
Right.
he will, every so often will surprise me with some flowers or a small gift. And similarly, I'll think to him, okay, well, what is he looking for? He actually needs space because he's quite an introvert and he needs his own time. So I can't just smother him with attention, because if I'm constantly thinking like, oh, I love you, he'll like shrink away. And so when
Well,
he
that's a really good point, just to be
Mhm.
aware of what your partner reacts to and what your partner needs in order to feel loved. That's so important. And, especially now where I think we are more relying on each other in relationships as we are, together, living together, cohabiting together. Yeah, just getting back into this awareness of, oh, yeah, I remember I actually really need, like you said, this feeling of affirmation, or these words of love, and maybe my partner really needs to have that sense that I'm seeing when something needs to be done, or I'm making a little breakfast in the morning. And yeah, just noticing this again. And if you don't know it from your partner, just ask.
Yeah. Do you have any
Simply
particular
question.
bids on your side?
Well, for me, the love language, I mean, this is a disaster, because Danielle's love language is much more words, and Germans, at least in my family, let's not say all Germans, never say I love you unless it's really just something very special. So I never got from my parents I love you. I never told
Mm,
them I love you. So words in that regard were kind of underrated for us in my family. And this is where those love languages come from. It was all about doing something for each other. So the first week Danielle lived with me, I was vacuum cleaning at 7 o'clock in the morning, cleaning the kitchen. And she like thought she, moved in with a crazy person. And and she just wanted to be really all sweet and nice and said the nicest things to me. And I felt like, why is she not helping me? She should actually do.
Oh, I
So
know.
you can imagine these different love languages had to be somehow found out, and then we had to find a way to also realize what the other person is doing is their way of really showing love and appreciation. And we had to adjust. It took us a few years actually to
Yeah.
really align with this each other. And yeah, so that's something that I find also really in this regards of discover your partner anew. And also your kids, they have love languages, they have ways that they feel loved from you. So just discover how everyone ticks, what everyone really needs and wants to feel safe and feel loved, and make that an intention to build the future on. This is
Mhm.
not the time to make relationships difficult. This is the time to make relationships stronger. And we can all do this. We just have to be more open and compassionate. And this is a meditation I want to guide you through, which is about compassion.
Right.
And this is
Absolutely.
something that we can come to at the end of this call.
Yes, absolutely, Friedman. And so, right before we jump into that meditation, we do have one more question with regards to family. And it's a very interesting one, and one I've heard a few times within some of my friends who are deemed essential workers right now. So Tammy here is asking, how do I navigate the needs of a community versus the needs of my family? So I have a
Mm.
private healthcare practice, so I've been deemed essential. Technically, I can move my practice to virtual, but I think it's really important for my patients to see me in person. However, I feel like I'm putting my husband at risk. My elderly parents are very, very worried. What's more important, and am I being selfish to not consider my family's needs?
Wow. I would say yes. Not selfish, but I would say that the concern of the family is warranted. I mean, if you are going out there seeing your patients, and you have an alternative to do it actually long distance or online, and you still prefer for your patient's sake to see them in person, perfectly fine. But then I would also suggest that you are putting yourself into a different living situation. I mean, that's what a lot of people in New York have been doing that are nurses or doctors. Some live in trailers, some live in hotels because they don't want to bring the virus potentially home. That's a real risk. I'm not sure in which capacity you are working with your patients, but imagine you are going, to work, and you are getting the virus from someone, and maybe it's very mild for you, but then you're giving it to your elderly parents. I don't think that's totally responsible. So we have to find a compromise. Is the compromise that you're going to just, see patients for a few weeks, and afterwards you're going to go for 2 weeks in quarantine yourself so that you're okay? Is that a compromise you can do? Or is it better for you just to wait longer and do online? You do have a responsibility to your family, for sure. And as a healthcare provider, I understand it is also a responsibility for your patients. But if you can find a way to either continue to do it online or just do it then for a specific period of time and then take really the step to quarantine yourself, unless, of course, you can get tested. I mean, if you have the ability to get tested, let's say you're going to work for a week and you don't go home for that week, you really stay somewhere else. And at the end of the week, you're going to get tested and everything is fine. You can go back home and enjoy your family. It all comes down to this testing. This is really, really an important factor that will set us so much more free when it's available. And you as a healthcare provider, maybe you can get your hands on it easier than others. But that's the problem with the testing too, that right now there are tests that can really go faster, but often these tests takes 4 or 5 days to get the results, and that's really useless because a lot can happen in 4 or 5 days. That's, doesn't really help you very much in regards to am I okay or not, unless you really would stay in self-isolation during those 4 or 5 days until you get the results.
I think you hit the nail on the head that, when a person is deemed an essential care worker, and if they are having to be called, now she said she has a private practice, so I think she has the opportunity to actually make a choice. But as you said, the nurses, people who are called in and they're doing their duty, they are they're not choosing, but they have to make that sacrifice and make these responsible choices of not stay, if they have a family or if they live with elderly parents, to not go home and to stay in hotels or with hospitals. And it's so, and it's such and this is one of the reasons why we applaud all the frontline workers right now, because they are doing so much and putting themselves
Definitely.
on the line and making such a huge sacrifice. So big shout out and a huge thank you to all our frontline workers and essential workers who are keeping this world running and putting their lives at risk to heal others and to help with the situation and to try and bring this crisis to an end.
Yeah, I really admire the dedication, the courage, that commitment, and it's so hard. I mean, I worked in an ER under normal circumstances. I found it really difficult, but this is like, for especially in the hotspots, this is like a war zone atmosphere and no end in sight, and colleagues are getting sick or dying. I mean, this is really, really hard, and I'm so grateful that people are just staying in their jobs. They're not saying, okay, I am done. This is no fun anymore. I mean, this is a sacrifice. This is real sacrifice. We all should really join in with applauding and thanking those, frontline workers. Also, when this is, behind us, just continuously remembering who was there for us when we
Yeah,
could, hide out in our rooms, and that's just something that I find, yeah, whether it's someone in
absolutely.
the supermarket or someone who is cleaning the streets or someone who is, in the hospitals, it's absolutely admirable.
Absolutely, Friedman. So we are coming towards the end of our time, and I believe you have a wonderful meditation that you want to share with everyone today.
Yeah, I always like to do the meditation part at the end, just to center yourself, and also to have a tool. Now, there are guided meditations on this YouTube channel. I mean, we have, I don't know how many now, maybe around 10 or more. and they are all about, empowerment, that also dealing with anxiety, compassion, opening your heart, dealing with loneliness. So you find quite a few tools on the channel, and you can also go to my website, drfriedemann.com, and find more tools there, and get also more information about my services and my one-on-one sessions. And right now we have a anxiety release CD set that's on sale, and also the Breakthrough Fear and Anxiety video seminar is really beautifully reduced for you to take advantage of. So check it out and browse around. But the meditation today is about compassion. And I think compassion is the force, the power that's going to help us to get through this and beyond, to really tap into our truest self. And this compassion meditation that I want to guide you through is based on the Buddhist practice of Tonglen. And Tonglen is a beautiful practice because it really teaches you to not be afraid of pain. It teaches you to not be afraid of fear, of loneliness, of anything that makes you feel uncomfortable. And it teaches you also to not be afraid of other people's pain or discomfort, by really guiding you through the practice, using your breath to take in whatever discomfort there is, your own and that from others, and then sending it out and releasing it and sending to yourself and others what you want to replace this with. It's a simple but effective way of finding a place of neutrality, of opening your heart and tapping into compassion, and to finding yourself of being of service. Even if you are sitting at home, you feel like, I'm actually helping people right now by doing this practice, because I'm taking energetically their pain away and I'm sending them the freshness of calmness or relief in that practice. So let's do it together and see how that goes. So all you need to do is just to get comfortable and close your eyes and allow yourself to just connect to your body. Let your body relax. Let yourself feel with every breath that your mind is relaxing. And then connect a little bit deeper with that space of your heart. And just notice the spaciousness and stillness and the clarity that exists in your heart. And then I would like you to connect to any tension, tightness, or restlessness that you may feel still in your body. You may still feel this somewhere in your body. And I would like you to connect to that feeling and breathe in that sensation. Take it in and then breathe out a feeling of cool, bright, and light energy, a sense of calm and freshness. And then breathe in again completely through all the pores of your body, that remaining tension or tightness. And then breathe out, radiate out completely through all the pores of your body, that feeling of calm and ease and bright light. And do this a few more times until you feel like that you have released that energy and you feel deeply connected to that bright, calm, refreshing energy. Inhaling whatever is remaining that you want to release. Exhaling through your breath all that you want to replace it with. And then connect to a feeling that you want to release. Courageously, openly, compassionately connect to loneliness or pain or worry or anxiety, and deeply inhale this uncomfortable feeling. Take it in. And then exhale relief, confidence, comfort, and peace. And again, inhale the feeling of whatever you want to release. And then exhale that what you want to send to yourself, peace and serenity, calmness and confidence. Taking in through all the pores of your body, the emotion that you want to let go of on the inhale. And on the exhale, releasing and sending out the ease and the peace and the confidence. And then just in your mind, repeat 3 times that love and kindness affirmation of, may I live with ease, health, and happiness. May I live with ease, health, and happiness. May I live with ease, health, and happiness. And now imagine one person or a group of people that are in the same boat, that are struggling like you have been struggling, that may feel stuck like you had been feeling stuck. Visualize, imagine those people, people you know or people you have heard of or people you can simply visualize sitting in their own homes, struggling. And now inhale their pain. Take it in. Allow yourself just to feel this deep compassion for their suffering. And on the exhale, send them relief, confidence, and peace. And again, on the inhale, take in their pain through all the pores of your body, knowing it won't last inside of you. Because now you are releasing it on the exhale and sending relief, peace, and confidence back to those that you have compassion for. And again, do this one more time, taking in all that, what you want others to have relief from. Open yourself up to take it in. And then send on the exhale that what you want them to enjoy and benefit from: peace, harmony, ease. And then in your mind, you simply repeat 3 times. Just as I wish to, may you live with ease, health, and happiness. just as I wish to. May you live with ease, health, and happiness, just as I wish to. May you live with ease, health, and happiness. And the last go around is for those that you choose. It may be the ones that are the closest to you. Do you want to take away their pain, their struggles? It may be those frontline workers. It may be everyone who had been struggling health-wise with this virus. Whatever you feel called to take on and release, choose, have your intention, your heart open, and then inhale deeply all that what you are ready to take away from those. And on the exhale, send to them that what they need, what they will benefit from: ease, health, peace. Use all the pores of your body on the inhale again to bring this all inside. Take from them the burden of the suffering and pain. And then release it and send to all of them that fresh, healing, light energy of peace and well-being. And do this one more time. And you can visualize those people feeling more unburdened, more at peace, more at ease as you practice. Send to them now ease, peace, and well-being through your exhale. And then 3 times in your mind, you complete this meditation by repeating, may you live with ease, health, and happiness. May you live with ease, health, and happiness. May you live with ease, health, and happiness. And then you can just bring yourself back into this present moment. You can extend this practice much more and much longer, but for now, just take another breath in. And on the exhale, you can come back and open your eyes. Welcome back. Now, I'm not sure how to start my video again.
I will patiently wait for you. Or we can look at your handsome face.
Yes, thank you very much. A shaved face, but yeah, it says I cannot start it. So I
Let
guess
me,
here we go.
there
You
we go.
are in charge. Thank you. Well, I hope this little meditation was helpful. When I first practiced it, I have to admit, I was a little concerned. Should I really take in other people's pain? And should I really take in this fear and anxiety others are experiencing? But the freeing experience of really just having no worries or no concerns about taking it on, because you know it's all temporary, it doesn't stay in you, you can release it right away, really changes also your relationship to your own worries and anxieties, and it makes it so much more easier to shift into that on the exhale peaceful and more centered way of feeling and being. So I don't know what you felt, Miroki, but just going through it always makes me feel better inside of me, but it also makes me feel I was of great service to others.
I think it's also an opportunity for us to continuously grow in our own ability to be compassionate towards other people,
Yes.
to think about others and to take on sometimes the worries and doubts of people who may not have the capacity to manage it themselves and just offer a little support. I think those of us who have the ability to be of support and be of service to others should should give that gift out, I guess, per se. And there's that whole idea where I once studied and going through depression, as someone who went through depression and talking to others, it's not always about saying to someone, you're going to be okay. Sometimes it's just sitting
Right.
with another person. And when you sit with that other person, you build a stronger connection, and you, as a result, feel more at peace, because that level
Mm.
of empathy allows you to bond with another person, just sitting in your shared understanding of your experience.
Definitely, absolutely. And I think this is where, we are in this practice learning to sit with emotions and take emotions on without getting stuck in them that we usually try to avoid. And
Hmm.
so, again, you can do this by yourself, you can do this with your family, but the point is just that you do open your heart more to the compassion that we are all capable of, and realizing, yeah, other people's suffering doesn't have to be something that we are just walking around and feeling like, well, they probably don't want me to bother. They want to actually, like you said, Miroki, to be maybe present and to be there and to know that we are not abandoned just because we are suffering. So that in itself is a wonderful benefit of this exercise. But I do believe really energetically, and I'm reading this fabulous book right now about quantum physics and the field that's so well described in quantum physics, and that we are connected. And I don't want to digress here, but we are connected energetically. And so if we are really, you know, feeling this connection to other people's pain, and our intention is to alleviate their pain, who knows, maybe in 10, 20 years, they will say, yeah, you actually do something. This is actually helpful. And this makes a person feel better, even if they are consciously not aware of it. And so
Hmm.
that's my belief, while this also, I think, is a great contribution to anyone that you are including into this Tonglen exercise. And if you want to read more about it, it's Tongelen, Tonglen, and well, you know what I mean. All right. Well,
Yeah.
thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Miroki, for being there and managing this all so beautifully.
Thank
And
you.
for
Thank you for
all
sharing.
those, yeah, I really enjoy this very much. I feel very much of service. So thank you so much for your interest and your questions and your comments. And I hope it brought a little bit more light into your life right now. Until
Absolutely.
next time,
Until next
we'll,
time.
we'll do this at least one more time, and in 2 weeks on Saturday, and we'll see what topic will emerge until then. Until
All right.
next time, take good care of yourself, stay safe, be well, be compassionate to yourself, be curious about yourself and those around you, and really just appreciate and love every moment, because that's all we really have. Goodbye.